Hi, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our little session today. I'm Ethan. This is Hannah. Hannah will introduce herself in just a moment. We're excited to talk to you about essay workshops because it's the thing that both of us really love. I feel like they're super effective, super efficient, and we're going to give away a whole bunch of stuff, some new exercises we've been working on. And I rewrote both of my books, fun fact, in like 8 weeks at the end of last year. So I'm gonna share a little couple things that I put in there. And yeah, we're glad you're here. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here. This is our official title, Creating Your College Essay Plan. We did a little check-in. If you're watching the recording, here's our little mood meter. This is our first little workshop moment of like, how are you feeling today? And if you feel like checking in the chat, let us know. But this is a great one for just getting students present in their bodies, in their minds, like where am I at? Because some these things are operating in us anyway. So just taking a moment to attune to the inner world and going, okay, where am I at today? And I'm feeling enthusiastic and I'm feeling, yeah, there's this interesting combination of tired and chill. I am noticing I'm feeling somewhat chill today. So if you've never met me before, what are you doing on this webinar? No, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff since 2003, which every time I say that, I'm like, whoa, dang, that's no, I'm up to year 23. I did take a break for grad school. But I spent a lot of time thinking about this and a lot of time still working on this. So this is still the thing that I love to do. If you question that, you can, on my podcast, I just recorded a new podcast episode yesterday. We've got this On Becoming series, and you can hear how much I love this work just by like my enthusiasm for like another essay that I hadn't read before. So anyway, I heart college essays. I heart college counseling and this work. I'm so glad you're here. You can hear my enthusiasm. Hannah?
Hi everyone, I'm Hanah Lim, like Hannah, like oh Hannah means family, and I'm the director of workshops here at College Essay Guy. I work with tons of schools all over the world, even in bringing this information to big groups. I'm a former high school English teacher and AVID teacher, and so I know what it's like to have a bunch of students that you need to help very quickly, and so. I know that a lot of you don't get that one-on-one time, that luxury of time. And so a lot of the way that I've built the materials and everything for our workshops is with that in mind. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And we're excited to come to the NACA conference. If y'all are going to be there, we're going to do a longer session, hopefully, if we get accepted. We've done it the last couple of years. So we're going to start with the DIY version. So if you're a counselor who's like, I want to like figure this out myself, we're going to give you the Legos to do this. I think it's Lego, technically. We're going to talk about some different workshop formats, some brainstorming exercises that we really love, we find to be effective and efficient. I'm going to talk briefly about how do you help students have the conversation about mental health challenges, some like sort of new advice on picking a topic, and there's a quick framework that I want to provide that you can give students so that they can be thinking about better topics, quote unquote. Some simple questions that you can ask when you get into that mode months from now of like helping them revise, sort of like a side pocket, like, okay, here are some questions that I can ask. And then if you're like, I want to partner with College Essay Guy, we've got a really low cost or maybe even free thing called CEG Live. It's our week-long summer boot camps that we'll tell you about at the end. And we're going to do a little giveaway. So if you're here at the end of the session, we've got a little, live session survey that we'll put in the chat right now. You just basically have to say, here's who I am, here's who I work with, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to randomly choose somebody to get free access for all of your students to our 3-day essay boot camp. So if that sounds interesting, fill out the form. This is for school counselors, by the way. IECs, we are glad you're here and welcome. CEG Live is a school counselor focused thing, but you're welcome to be here, and we're so glad you're here. Okay, Hannah's going to talk about some different workshop formats because we can do the 1 hour version, we can do the 3-day version, and we can do the 4-week version, and all those are kind of different. So, Hannah, take it away.
Yes, Zoom updated for me, so all the buttons are in different places now. My goodness. Okay. All right. So I wanted to go over a couple different workshop formats. Whenever I meet with counselors, they're always curious, like, what are other schools doing? What are all the different options? And unfortunately, all of it is in my head. So we tried to write down some of that for you. And so I'm going to go into the different options, but also to give like realistic expectations also. So ideally, it would be like 1 hour workshop. I know that some schools don't even have an hour. You might have only like 45 to 55 minutes per period, but this is an ideal situation. If you could break it up into two, that'd be amazing. But if you only had 1 hour, let's say it's like after school or during lunch, if you even have an hour, you're going to be going over what is the personal statement. So you're not just going over the personal statement as if they know everything, because a lot of times the students actually don't know the purpose of it. And they don't understand that this is not a writing contest, that sometimes students think that they need to write a great essay, but they're not writing a good like college essay. And so we're going to go over the components of what makes a good college essay later. And then to ideally go over a couple brainstorming exercises, we find that students have a better topic if they have better brainstorming. I think, Ethan, you call it like the dough that you're working with or the
Yeah.
clay that you're
Or the
working with
clay.
to make a
Yeah.
good pizza or I don't know, pot, whatever it is. But anyway, to have that quality experience with them. And then reviewing examples is also huge. I think a lot of times students just see the examples they see on TikTok and they should really be coming from you as the experts. And so that's pretty much just kind of giving them like a general overview of it. And then we do have some slides here that you'll be able to use. Oh, I can't click on it, but they're editable slides that you'll get at the end of today's session that you can use as like kind of like the general overview there. And so you're just kind of giving them an idea of what colleges want, what makes a great college essay, and then feel motivated to move on. Because I think a lot of times they think it's a really scary thing, but it's actually very introspective, maybe even, you know, positive experience. And so the 3 day workshop, I would say, is ideal. But again, a 3 day workshop's not going to necessarily turn into a draft because something that students will often say is, Miss Lim, pressure makes diamonds. I could just do this last minute and it'll be great. No, not for college essays because the introspection takes lots of time for them to like really think back because they don't really get that practice. And so the first day, ideally, we'd be brainstorming. Second day is actually going over the structure, taking that bank of ideas and then figuring out how they're going to, pick a topic and structure that. And then ideally, after the second day, they'll send you outlines, um, kind of put some like urgency, like their feet to the fire a little bit. Because if you start them junior year, they're going to think, I don't know why I'm starting so early when I have so much time. How many of you, I can't see your hands, but how many of you ever felt that way where like they just think they have all this time and then they rush to the end? Thank you, Stephanie. I see your hand. And then, yes, and then so ideally they would start drafting and, they start earlier so that by the time it hits fall, when it's very busy for you dealing with registration and all those different things, you're not like, you need to start all over again. And so ideally it would be the 3 day if you have the luxury of time. When I was an AVID teacher, I definitely incorporated this into my curriculum. Sometimes counselors have advisories. Something like this is possible. It doesn't have to be you're working on it every day for 4 weeks. It would be like the first week is some kind of brainstorming. Second week is structure. So you're giving them a little bit of time to process, to really think about things. And this is assuming maybe they're not doing it as homework, so they could go even faster. Drafting the third week. And then again, I was a high school English teacher, so there was no way I can have all of my students submit drafts to me. I give them feedback and give it back. That was not going to happen. And so we did a lot of peer review. It's like an AVID strategy of like tutorials, and it's possible to do it within that time and get a really great draft. And so it's a wonderful thing if you can do it. I understand though that not everyone has this kind of time. But yeah, if you have, let's say in the summer, you could do a 3 day workshop. This would be an ideal format. Sometimes if schools feel like, well, my students don't need like a full day of brainstorming, you could even combine day 1 and 2, and then maybe day 3, if you really wanted to get them ahead, you could do supplementals. It's kind of like up to you, like what your goals are for that. If for whatever reason you're like, I want to see a 4 week pacing guide for that. We do have a curriculum. You can go on our website and check it out there. Okay. And then, oh, okay. Another thing is, so another way to kind of get the students to have a little bit more urgency is if the English classes, ideally you would all be aligned if the English classes made it an assignment. And I know I've heard this so many times, oh, but the English class essays don't end up being what they actually write about. That's totally fine. If actually the senior year teachers can even make it the first assignment and then let them know, like, this is going to help you for that first assignment. You don't want a bad grade for the first assignment. That can also be something you can align with. We at College Jessica, we're the busiest ride after APs are done, but ideally that is a great time for them to start thinking about what's next. If you and I actually go to a lot of schools as soon as school is over. It's baked into their like school schedule that students come right back the day after school lets out, and then you can actually start your boot camp then, because you know how it is. They get into summer plans and it's all over from there. So, but there are also schools that will do it in August before they get back, and there's also great progress there as well. And then fall, it is actually less common. I do know a lot of schools that do that, but by then it's like rushing to that finish line. So ideally, you would get it done earlier. So, yeah. So this is like a more of a breakdown of each month, how to do it. You take a screenshot of that. Awesome.
Sweet, thanks.
Mhm.
Just to that point that Hannah was making about some of the things that we say to students when we're helping them orient at the start of those workshops. When we talk about what the purpose of the Common App essay, the phrase that we will repeat again and again is, what are the skills, qualities, values, interests that you'll bring to a college campus? Another way we say it is, what are you going to be, bring as a member of their community? And I know they all know this, it's like, yes, yes, Ethan, we've heard this before. But I think that can be pretty orienting because when a student's trying to figure out their topic, the question I put back to the student is like, is that going to be a great way to show the skills, qualities, values, and interests that you'll bring to a college campus? You know, and that can help them decide sometimes. But I think, and I want to talk a little bit more about this later, a great personal statement topic is elastic, which is to say stretchy enough to talk about lots of different sides of themselves. It's going to be hopefully uncommon in some way. It doesn't need to be uncommon, totally uncommon, like mind blowing. Oh my gosh, I've never seen an essay on this thing before. But if they are going to write about a common topic, are there some ways to make that more uncommon? I'll get into more on common topics in just a little bit. And how can the student show qualities that colleges are looking for? And we'll share some of those in just a little bit too. But this is sort of like an orienting framework that we'll use at the start of workshops. And the slides that Hannah mentioned that we couldn't click, we've got a little personal statement 1 hour guide that goes through some of the things like what do colleges look for and what are the admission nutrients, and which we'll get into in just a little bit. We'll share those at the end of the session. And so stay tuned.
Can I address
Okay.
one of the
Yeah,
questions in the
please, please,
chat?
please. Yeah.
So, someone asked, would the 3-day workshop be 3 full days or
Hmm.
3 sessions spaced out over 3 days? That's a great question.
Yeah.
So, you could do both. You will get different results. So, for the 3 days, typically when we do it, it's either like 90 minutes per time where the students will just kind of take in the information. But if you want them to actually write, you could do like a 3 hour session. So, like a 90 minutes of them doing the workshop, 90 minutes of them writing. We've even done 90 minutes of the workshop and like 3 hours of them writing per
Yeah.
day. So if you're wanting a draft real bad by the end of those 3 days, then you could do that. But it's not like a full days. Their brains can only handle so much and it's a lot. So yeah. Mhm.
But that's my favorite format. Thanks for naming that, Hannah, because
Yeah.
this 3 day format of like whether you're doing it at the, I don't know, the start of the summer and you're ordering lunch, order Subway or something, have somebody, a parent help with like bring in subs and, make sure you've got vegetarian options and gluten-free options, etc. And then just have them be there, bring their laptops and do the dang thing. Hey, we're going to meet from 9 to 3. Some students will have to leave early, that's such a great format. And I think can really get them from like the zero place to like the 40% place. I'm trying to be realistic here. Some students will have a thing that they finish and they're like, I'm happy with this. And they're like at the 80% done. Many students though will kind of be at that like, okay, I think I'm halfway there. I've got a draft that I really like, or maybe a second draft. But that's such a great format. Okay. Okay, brainstorming exercises. So what we're going to do now is I want to share, we've shared these different formats that we're going to share some of the Legos, like the pieces that kind of slot into these so that you can figure out whatever format you want to use. So some of these brainstorming exercises that we do in these things, and like Hannah mentioned, there's like an exercise workbook that we've got that we've updated for 2026. It's all shiny and nice and new. I'm going to walk you through a couple of these and show you how I actually lead them with students. And there's a new one that you may not be familiar with. So here are the
Okay.
pieces. So take these and do with these what you will.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so nice. Thanks for like updating this. It's just so pretty. Hannah's so much better at like that formatting things and making things look beautiful than I am.
Yeah, you guys
Um,
might see like a little facelift on some of these exercises. But yeah, I want to go over this one with you. At
yeah.
the end of the session, you will get you will get this. And basically, it has some of the, greatest hits of I Love, I Know and Essence Objects and things. And so I wanted to show you a different one that maybe you haven't seen before. Look at these. It looks so nice. I wanted to show you the 10 things I want colleges to know about me list. So this one is fantastic if you do have a large caseload of students that you may not know that well. And say you're a counselor, you need to be able to read their personal statement and write them a letter of recommendation if you've only met them maybe once or twice in the 4 years that they've been with you. This is a wonderful way to get to know them very, very quickly. The students, we often say, like, their life is the water that they're swimming in. And so oftentimes there might be certain things that are very normal to them, but might be really new to you. And so if you have the students complete this before they meet with you, before you look over all their brainstorming and everything, it will give you so much context into, a little bit of a wider perspective of their lives. So I would really, really recommend this as something that we use, that's really helpful. We actually partner and are in collaboration with a lot of different groups like Jack Kent Cooke Foundation and things where we do offer one-on-one help. We have our Match Letters program where we meet with students one-on-one, but we need to meet with them very quickly and give them really good advice in that short amount of time that we have. And so we do have them complete this, but I wanted to show you something exciting where this one is the FGLI version of the 10 things I want colleges to know about me. The way that this one is a little bit different is that it actually allows students to give more context into their lives. So especially if you have students even like applying to UC schools, like in the 10 things I want colleges to know about me, the original list, there are no like really mentions of like challenges and things, but there is that PIQ on challenges. So there are these like orange, bulleted questions that they don't have to answer all of them, but it might give them it might give you a better glimpse into the students and what they're going through. So you'll see in this one at the end, there's an optional challenges question. Again, they don't have to do this. Again, we do not advocate for selling your trauma, but we just want you to give them an opportunity to write it somewhere because oftentimes it may not actually show up in their brainstorming at all. And so I would really recommend this one, especially if you are meeting with students very quickly. So there's that one, and then there's FGLI student one.
Yeah, we basically just put these on separate tabs. So when you get the workbook, if
Yeah.
you're like, where was this? You're just like tab one, that's
Yep.
the one that we were showing here. And
Mhm.
then the second tab here, it's 10 things. This is the one that Hannah just mentioned that has that
Yes.
additional section at the end that says challenges here. And
Mhm.
then it also, this version also has some more questions that you can see. So if you look at this one and you're like, I think my students would like this shorter one. So you can kind of see how it like names the different categories.
Mhm.
The second version has like specific questions, like what are your goals, short term and long term? Where do you want to apply to college? So
Mhm.
it's like a slightly more detailed, robust version, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet. That's one that we love. Another one we love is I come from. So many of you have maybe never heard of this one. So let me just go through here's how I would lead it with the student, and I'm going to do it in the workbook here. So I come from has two parts, and the first part of the exercise is let me just grab it. I come from. There we go. Okay. So the first one is I'm going to kind of try to hide part of this thing because this is how I do it with them is I just want the student to finish the following sentence stem as many times as they can. And we'll do this for like a minute. And I'll just say, all right, so we're gonna do I come from. I want you to just try and finish the words I come from. What comes to mind? And if I'm doing that, Ethan, and I'm a 17-year-old, I'm like, I come from Miami. I come from growing up overseas. I come from um, a dad who loved college basketball. I come from etc. And I'm probably not getting too wide in scope with it. I'm probably just thinking what's right, what like in conversation I would say to somebody that wouldn't sound weird. And then you go, great, you've done that for a minute. Now I want you to consider different aspects of where you might come from. So for instance, I come from a dinner table where, oh, okay, that's different. A dinner table where we cleared the dishes in order to play euchre afterwards or Monopoly. A family who taught me about that could go so many different ways for me. I'm actually gonna like it taught me about the importance of being good. It taught me a lot about um, Jesus. There was a lot of like going to church and a lot of like Wednesday night potlucks, etc. Anyway, they can get into it. And I tell students to skip around with these. And I'll do this for like 2 or 3 minutes. But look how broadly this goes. The smells of this and the tastes of that and the feel of that. Normally, when I'm doing this with counselors, I'll be like, hey, share in the chat. And I want to do that, but I imagine you're a little bit more in like, I don't know, it's the middle of your day mode. So I'm not going to make you do the exercise. But this one, I just want you to know, is so rich. Thinking about things like what are the questions that I come from? And what does my name mean? And look at this one. I come from the intersection of blank and blank. Like that's a whole, first of all, a great line, opening line for an essay, but there are whole worlds that this one opens up. This is one that I did a counselor in-person workshop last year, and we started doing this there, and folks loved it. And so we added it. I added it to my book, and we've added it to our resources since then. So yeah, strong recommend. Love for you to try this one. Check it out, see where it goes. And if students don't vibe with it, look, we've got other exercises, in these tools here. We've got, the I love, I know exercise, which is a go-to favorite, where students basically make a list of things that they love or know a lot about, which could totally become an essay topic. The classic essence objects. We've got random questions there. And again, these are Legos. I want you to sort of take and, tweak them and do what you want, add in an exercise that you love, make it what you will. Okay. Um, Let me close that tab so I don't keep clicking it. My favorite one, if you've been at all on my webinars in the last 2 years, is this roles and identities exercise. And I can't tell you how many places this is popping up. And I'll show you some ways that this makes its way into the application in just a minute. But the way this one works, very simply, here's the short version of this one, is you have students go in and bold 10 roles that they identify with most. And okay, I identify with creator and I just bold, delegator and I hit bold. And I'm just like, hitting Command B. I'm a founder. I am a leader. I'm just grabbing some at random here. And then once they've done that, I ask them to like pick some of them that they identify with most. And okay, let's say it's I don't know, the harmonizer. I'm trying to create harmony in my family, among my friends, etc. Where does this show up in my life? So the harmonizer for me shows up and you name all these places where it shows up. It starts to create the building blocks of an essay. And what I love about the roles and identities is that they can be explicit in the essay. Like in my family, I'm a harmonizer. They could literally say that as a sentence, or it could just be the essence of what they're showing. So as they're talking about their roles in their families, the vibe is, oh yeah, you sound like a harmonizer. Like you sound like you're creating harmony. So it could point them to certain values. And it shows them as agentic, not in the AI sense, in the like, I'm doing, making, building, creating stuff in the world. And if we go back to that original concept of like, what are the skills, qualities, values you're going to show? It's such an efficient way of helping students think about the ways that they're showing up in the world. So strong recommend for this one. This shows up in so many different ways. So here's an example. A student in his brainstorming was talking about being a creator. I've always been a curious but also creative person. I've got visions of things and I want to bring them to life. And he had this startup that he worked on. So in his personal statement, he says, I co-founded this startup that helps students build scalable projects and bring awesome initiatives to life. So that's a specific example of his creator identity. So it could be in the personal statement. It could be that they've got this, diversity community, how will you contribute essay, this really popular supplemental essay. Whoops, that's become even more popular than the YS. I think it's kind of the new YS. Hot take. The how will you contribute essay is the actual answer that a college wants when they're asking the YS question. How will you contribute to our campus? And looking at different, like as a composer or as a change maker, here's how I'm going to contribute on your campus through this particular opportunity. So it's also a great way to set them up and connect their personal statement to these other supplemental essays, or to show parts of themselves that they didn't get to show in their personal statements through those supplements. So another simple brainstorm is like, do this. So like once they've written their personal statement, give me 3 roles or identities that aren't coming through as strongly, as clearly, and use that as a brainstorm to think about, okay, what are the different ways that I'm going to contribute on a college campus? So for instance, if you are a mediator, great, you've done that in your school. How will you do that on campus? Give me a specific example of how you hope to bring those skills to the classroom or to clubs. Certainly, this can work for the UC Pure Personal Insight questions. Also, thinking about their activities list, like which sides of themselves are showing up. It's like values, like using a values scan to be like thinking about which parts are coming through in the application. But I think it's a little more, I don't know, forward leaning, a little more active. It's a little more something, you know. Values can sometimes, for some students, I think that it's really going to work. But there's something about this that it starts to conjure even more images, I think, in my mind. When a student thinks about contrarian, there might be a value of like, I don't know, critical thinking or something. But when they think about what is the contrarian in me, I can like, I don't know, that just like conjures images in my mind, even for myself. I don't consider myself like that's not one of my top 10 identities, but I can think of instances where I have been a contrarian or where that has been, summoned in me. Other ways, this student in his additional information section wanted to explain his grades. And he had he calls them transcript struggles, and so he explains it in a very straightforward way here. Here are the circumstances that I went through, the dip in my grades. Here's what I did about it. Here's what I learned. But the identity underneath this is the fighter in him, the part of him that wouldn't give up, which I love. I'm like, yes, yes, please. Um, there's the energizer. So this was a supplemental essay where he talks about being a bolt of energy. And in this context that he gave was, after watching Karate Kid, he got inspired to get into martial arts, and he shows this energizer identity through, the way that he worked with his students. So it's not just like I mentor students. It's like not just I'm an energizer. Like I'm an enthusiast or whatever that, identity is. Okay, so just to recap real quick, these exercises are all going to be in the workshop, the workshop, the book, the what is it called? The exercise workbook. I know. Essence objects I've talked about a lot in the past, but these are some great ones. They're all in there. And the roles and identities one, I like to do last because I think this is kind of like to use in Lord of the Rings, the one ring to rule them all. I think it's kind of like all these other exercises really prime them for thinking about the roles and identities so that when they get to that and you ask them a tough question like where do these roles show up in your life, then what they've got, and it's not listed last here, but I would say just move it last, is once you've got all of those different things that you love and you know a lot about, and 10 things I want you to know about me, like this can be such a beautiful way of bringing everything together and being like, okay, I've got some great examples that will actually manifest and make their way into their applications. Okay. So, all that said, let's shift to once students have brainstormed some stuff, whether they've spent 30 minutes on it or 45 minutes, or I don't know, maybe you spent a whole day on that. I find that topics that tend to be harder to do well, and this is like not Ethan saying definitely don't have students write on these topics, but it's just going to be a kind of an uphill battle, is when the topic's extremely common, like a common sport, common instrument, common extracurricular. I've listed some here. When it's a stigmatized topic, which is like something that is maybe related to like, a celebrity, like they really want to write about Taylor Swift, or they really want to write about, video games or something like that. And I don't want to say no, but I want to say like you might have to spend some energy, some words, some of your word count explaining why this thing isn't whatever the stereotype is about it. And it's possible, but I would just let the students know it's probably going to take a lot of drafts and you're probably going to have to spend some energy on this thing. The other thing is polarizing topics, right? Religion, politics, these things that the reader it could ping something for them. They might disagree with you. So here's some more common personal statement topics. Feel free to screenshot. These are the ones that I think are kind of like some of the greatest hits. But if a student is considering writing about one of these things, they do really want to write about tutoring, and they're just like, I just love this tutoring program. I'll ask them, tell me what value it connects to. Like, what's the thing about you that you really want me to get? Maybe it's I just really love helping others. Great. Or what's the role or identity? Oh, this is my energizer self. You see what I'm doing here? Because the question that's implied in this is like, are there other ways to show this? Or could you weave it into a paragraph? Could you show that energizer self in paragraph 2 or paragraph 3? And is there a zoom back, maybe a larger topic that you might consider that would allow you to make this a chapter in the story as opposed to the whole book? Right? So if the student is thinking about, I really want to show my love of tutoring, great. Let's make that the second paragraph. What's the larger thing that you're doing? And we've got all sorts of ways of coming up with that larger topic that we won't get into today. But what is the zoom back topic that allows you to show that side of yourself? Sometimes the student's going to insist. They're going to be like, I have to write about tutoring. And we go, okay, are there some uncommon connections? In other words, can you look at the values list, for instance, all these different things that I care about? And are there some common things that relates to tutoring? Probably. There's some more obvious ones. Are there maybe some more uncommon things that you could focus on? So, what has tutoring taught you about intuition or about the importance of quiet, of just listening to your student, about laughter, you know, about I don't know, variety when it comes to, I don't know, your teaching methods or something. So my point here is that talk about clay, choosing different values is, I think, up-leveling your clay, the stuff that you're molding with in these paragraphs. And that's if a student insists on writing about one of these things, or if they're like, hey, it's a week from the deadline. How do we make this, how do we make this work? The other thing I would say is like, it's just the opening. Like if the opening sort of immediately is like soccer essay, I think it kind of puts us in skimming mode. It could be that the opening is tweaked slightly in order for that's a little bit slightly more interesting and then yes, along the way we discover some uncommon connections related to whatever it is, soccer or dance. Okay. A great way to save time though for us as counselors is to run topic checks. So a few different ways to do this, but what we're looking for, broadly speaking, and we can, and I tell students this, I'm looking to help you come up with a topic that's elastic. So stretchy enough to talk about lots of your different values. That's the first thing. To me, that's the most important thing. Because some topics are going to be like super narrow, and I can only talk, like if I talk about my water bottle, it's not going to be super elastic for me because I don't know what I would connect it to. It'd be kind of hard. But certain things students know a lot about, they're going to be able to connect it to a million parts of themselves. So we're looking for something that's elastic. Number two, uncommon in some way. Again, in some way. Doesn't have to be beekeeping, but is there something, maybe those uncommon connections that could make this topic stand out? And then the other thing that we've shifted and talk about a little bit more in terms of what colleges look for is these admission nutrients. Now, if you read my book that came out in 2016, I didn't talk about this much, probably not enough in terms of what colleges are looking for. And you'll see some essays in there that are like good essays, but they don't necessarily show me the qualities that are going to, contribute to a college community. So Hannah, will you say just a little bit about these admission nutrients?
Mhm.
Just to give context for this was from a big analysis that we did 2 years ago of like hundreds of schools. What are they looking for? Went through their mission statements, their strategic plans, and their actual web pages that say, here's what we look for. Like Caltech has this. Oh, this is their at a glance page. Here, I'll give you a quick example. Caltech, what we look for. So if you Google Caltech, what we look for, some schools are actually going to have, oh no, it took me to the same page. Anyway, I'll find it. But you can basically find there's a Caltech, what we look for page. So we looked at a bunch of those and sort of landed on, okay, here's some qualities that are going to be at least non-offensive to college readers, but at best, things that will be like, oh yeah, I'd totally love to have this student on my campus. So when you talk to students about this, Hannah, what do you like to say? How do you set this up?
Yeah, a lot of times when I say to students that there's a difference between a good essay versus a good college essay, this is what differentiates those things. Does your essay hit upon these things? So the way that I describe it is in more of like a flowing nature. So
Mhm.
we'll say that colleges are looking for someone with intellectual curiosity. They're not just looking for somebody who is quote unquote smart, but they're genuinely excited to learn about something. It
Mhm.
shows the
Mhm.
ability to geek out about stuff. But are they curious just for themselves or is it for other people? So are they going to use that for helping their community, for example? And that's become one of the most popular questions for the supplements. And then when they're serving other people, are they doing it as a follower or as a leader? Are they taking initiatives to do those things for other people? And are they doing it alone or are they collaborating with other people in that? And is this something that they've done consistently or something they did in like one summer, right? And so the thing is, the entire application is a place for these nutrients to show up. Their essay does not have to touch upon all of these things, but
Right.
ideally it would touch upon some of them. So the way that we describe it is that the personal statement is more like a chapter for the entire application, but somewhere in the application, these nutrients should show up because this is what colleges are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And it shows up in so many different ways. And like collaboration is going to look like one thing to one student. Initiative is going to look one thing, one student, and different to another. Let me just give you that Caltech page. So here's the Caltech what we look for page. You'll see some of these things like resilience. Some of these qualities are like things like resilience, sort of keeping going, collaborative spirit, creativity. Creativity was one that didn't make our top five, but it was definitely in the top 10 things that colleges talk about. There's also colleges talk a lot about not just inclusivity, but can you thrive, in a diverse community? It's interesting where you've got like single-minded determination. That's that sort of consistent engagement, but also an outlet. Like you don't just only do STEM stuff. And that's why I think Caltech in particular has added, not just a passion for chemistry and physics, but also the humanities and the social sciences. So anyway, this is another thing that when I'm helping students think about topics, okay, is your topic, whatever it is, elastic, uncommon in some way, or has the potential to be uncommon? And does it have potential to show some of these qualities? And if not, like Hannah said, it could come somewhere else in the application. I led a workshop this last year, and students came up with some awesome topics. And I want to share with you how I did it because it was a slight pivot from what I've normally done in the past. But let me just show you some of these topics. And the way that we did this is we did something called a jellyfish exercise, which I'm going to explain to you more in just a minute. But these are examples for me of topics that are elastic, uncommon in some way, and potential to show admission nutrients. So some of them you'll see are kind of broad, like art, and some of them are more specific, like, magic or mentalism, and, this experimenter identity. So the student is identifies as an experimenter. The two questions that I ask them are, whatever your topic is, what are the values that you can connect it to? And that's the jellyfish exercise that we'll do in just a minute. And then beyond that, because I had introduced them to this roles and identities exercise, what opportunities do you see for showing this experimenter self in the world? So, photography helps me show my observer self, helps my observer and my analyzer roles express themselves. For meditation, it helps me with, creativity and equanimity. What are the roles that it connects to for me? My filmmaker role. And that's an interesting, surprising connection there. So this was just, a 10-minute exercise that I did with them. But the way that I think, one of the things I think helped them come up with all these different ideas was I did a few things different. One is like, I didn't just do 1 hour, I did 2 hours. So here's another option for y'all. And if you had 2 hours with students, I spent the first 30 minutes going through example montage essays and a few narratives, allowing them to it was kind of like a wine tasting. I didn't call it that. I called it like, an essay, like get to know the genre is what I said, where they were able to see what was possible in terms of different essays. And I know this feels counterintuitive because I know that oftentimes, let me just share my face for just a second. I know that sometimes we're like, I don't want to share sample essays because I don't want them to think that's what they have to do, or I don't want them to be intimidated. I find that if you analyze them, the intimidation tends to wear off. And the pros of them seeing, oh, here's what other students have done, that if you can give the sort of, okay, here are the tools to find your own idea, it can turn relatively easily into inspiration, even though there will be this first hit of intimidation potentially. So if I was turning that into like a graphic, I'd be like, intimidation turns into inspiration. But after we do that, we go, okay, now that you have a sense of what's possible here, now let's do these brainstorming exercises. So they're doing them with an eye toward, okay, so I'm kind of trying to like prime them, get those creative juices flowing. And then I did that. What values does this connect to? What roles and identities? And I did this in a Google Doc format. I put it projected onto the screen, and I was like, everybody had editing access because they were all working off the same. They basically had created a doc. They all copied it and did their exercises in that. And then I was like, all right, I want you all to share what some ideas you're coming up with. And they shared them like this. And what it allowed me to do was to give feedback, like right then and there. And so when you see in our little, walkthrough of things, like giving feedback, I love giving feedback publicly because I want to install a little counselor, a little college essay guy on their shoulder that's talking through things like, elasticity, an elastic topic that's going, art. Okay, art might be somewhat common. How could you make this even more uncommon, or even more specific? Hay bales. Okay, hay bales are tough because it's one particular thing, and it can be hard to make that really elastic. Does hay bales represent a single example of something? Are there other, what does it represent? What are other things like hay bales that you could talk about? And so encouraging them. But the point is, like, by giving them lots of feedback right then and there, and they're hearing everybody else's feedback, they're sort of training their senses of the kinds of things that we're looking for. And it can happen pretty efficiently, even in like 1, 2 hour session. Okay. If students are writing about mental health challenges, some of the questions that I'll ask are, well, first of all, let me go back to the initial thing. Is that going to be your topic that's elastic, uncommon in some way, and allows you to show admission nutrients? And I'll just like sit with that and be like, what do you think? And then they kind of run through it. Okay, elastic. Does it connect to lots of different parts of me? Okay, maybe. Because the concern there is that it just shows one aspect of you, uncommon in some way. And then I'll tell them, I'm like, it's become an incredibly common topic when I talk to admission officers. A lot of times they're like, yeah, that's the most common topic that I see right now. And then admission nutrients. Is there a way, if you're going to write about mental health challenges, for you to talk about some of these? Or could it be that, that goes into the additional information section if you feel like that's really important? Is that somewhere that goes in the challenges and circumstances? Um, if, as a counselor, could I write about that? Could I say a little bit about that? You can kind of let me know what that journey was like for you. But if they really want to use in the personal statement, I would use this, challenges and effects, what I did and what I learned format. This same format will work for the additional info or challenges and circumstances section. And I've more and more been sort of scooting students towards that section because I want them to have some topic that's going to be more apt to be more elastic, more uncommon in some way, and more likely to get them, to show all these different sides of themselves. Of course, with common topics, you can also ask them, could you weave it into a particular paragraph so that it doesn't, end up being the whole thing. So that's how I sort of nudge students. And I'm trying to use relatively neutral questions, but of course they're leading questions about this. Is it elastic, uncommon in some way, admission nutrients? And the other thing that I'm asking, just to go way back in the slides, is this initial thing, which is like, okay, if the purpose of the Common App essay is to answer what are the skills, qualities, values, and interests you'll bring to a college campus, is that your ideal topic? Is that your best topic? Or could it be that there's something else that you might brainstorm that you might find in today's session, you know, that could come up, that could be even better for you? But again, I want to reassure them that, hey, there is a place for that in the application, if they want to put it in. We've got a complete guide on this. I did a 3-part podcast last year before last on this. I did a session with Chris Liu, who is an amazing college counselor. I met with Christina Lopez, the dean at Barnard, and Emmy Neatfield, who wrote a book on disclosing mental health challenges in her application, so a former student. Uh, and each of them has a really interesting perspective on this. And we sort of arrived at this guide here that we'll again put in the chat here. If you want to help students pick a topic, I think there's this one that's pretty effective and pretty simple. And basically, here's the visual version. To have them pick whatever their topic is, thing that they love or know a lot about research, and just connect it to different values. So this is sort of like just a variation on the Google Doc exercise that I showed you. You don't have to have them write it, but some students will prefer to I'll just have paper there and I'll have them just write it. And if they can connect it to lots of different values, 7 in a couple minutes, I give them like 2 minutes for this, then it's probably a pretty good one, you know. So this is the elasticity check. I'm kind of mixing my metaphors there, but this is one that I love. And then another one, and this is like sometimes useful at the start, but it can be really useful later on in the process, is to have them come up with a log line, which is basically a 1 sentence description of their story. So in this example from this movie, let's see who can name it in the chat first. After my family moved cross country, I felt lost and emotionally overwhelmed, challenge, which made it hard to connect with others and left me bottle up my feelings. That's a big hint, effects. With help from unexpected sources, my own emotions, I learned how to embrace sadness, another hint, express vulnerability, and let go. I discovered what healing comes not just from joy, but from feeling it all. Anybody catch it? This was it's funny because I don't often think of this movie as being a story about a family moving cross country, but this is a Pixar movie, Inside Out. So the student version of this is basically name your topic in the first sentence. So like food, for instance, and then what has it taught you? And here are all the values that I want to show in the essay. The other one is like, the narrative example. Growing up, the student experienced hearing loss and shrank into silence. But then, through an internship with a speech pathologist and a team leadership program, came out of their shell, learned that advocating for themselves is what makes them brave. So that's a simple example of this, and it can be an incredibly orienting thing. I think it's maybe early to do this in like a first workshop. This is one that's like if you're doing a day two or 2 or 3 day one, I think this could be a day two or day three exercise, but a really, really, really helpful one. When you do get into revision for students, this is one to like maybe take a screenshot of this. When you're trying to think about how do I help this student with this draft, some simple questions that you can ask for a challenges-based essay is first, is it clear what the challenges are, what the effects of those challenges were on a student, what they did about it to overcome the challenge, and what they learned? Chances are one of these pieces is not there. And I think it's important to bring all four of those pieces in if you want to give a full arc of a story that's going to help show skills, qualities, values, and interests. If the student is choosing something else to write about, not a challenge, is it clear what the topic is? And I think a great place to articulate the topic to clarify is at the start. Does the student have specific examples that illustrate specific values? So those things I think are really important. And you can kind of be like, hey, I'm not clear what values, I'm not clear what sides of yourself you want to show. Or I get that you want to show hard work, but I think that you need to show me with specific examples. And then hopefully, either along the way in the paragraphs or at the very end, there's some kind of so what that is like giving you insight into, how this is going to make you a great, how make great contributions to the college campus, why these are meaningful to you, etc. So these are some of my favorite orienting questions. I come back to these very often when I'm like, how do I help the student do this? Oftentimes it's like something as basic as like, you know what, I'm just not clear what the topic is, or I'm just not clear what the challenges are. So hope that's helpful. Okay, I'm so excited to talk to you all about CEG Live. I want to let Hannah share a little bit first about this program, and then we're going to shift into Q&A. But this is like our, one of our biggest programs of the year. And Hannah, I'm going to give it to you do you want a screen share or do you want me to keep the screen share? Oh, you're muted, darling. That was the Zoom 2022, quote of
I
2022.
know. Yeah, I will screen share. Thank
Okay, great.
you.
You got it.
Okay. Y'all, Ethan doesn't do that many student workshops anymore. This is the one time he does it. So that's why we call it College Essay Guy Live. And we've seen so many schools really struggle with, the part about like students picking their topics, starting too late, and then having so much pressure on you because they're just starting so late.
Will you
And
screen share, Hannah? I don't think you're screen sharing yet.
I think they have to toggle to my
Oh,
screen
that's
share.
it. Thank
I know
you.
it's Zoom changed.
Zoom
Y'all,
changed.
I
If you
know,
want to
it's
see, if you
annoying.
want to screen share, it's at
Yeah,
the
you got to
top. You just
click
have
on
to
the
click on it.
top
Thank
and so
you.
you can see it. Yes, I know. That's what happened earlier with you too. I was like, I don't see a screen and then figured it out. Anyway, um, yes, and so we often hear from counselors, they're waiting till the fall, and then it's literally during the busiest time of the year when they come to us for help. And yeah, even the strongest students struggle to find a topic. And so we've actually created this program to help you with that whole thing. And so if students can ideally start before the senior year, have time to reflect on it, you then build in that time for them to do the exercises. Um, to go into the fall like more ready and not like rushing to do their supplementals and their personal statement. Overall, making sure that the students do it earlier makes such a big impact. And this is something that we started ever since COVID times, and we just didn't stop because it's become such a big part of schools programming. And so we did this so that the students can work on it over the summer. It's very, very low lift for counselors. And it's to support what you're already doing. It's going to definitely start that momentum and to take some of that early stage lift off of your plate for sure. And what's really cool is that counselors have told us that they can tell which of their students did the program and which ones didn't. And it's not just because of the style of the essay, but really just like the level of quality of it. And so it's very, very easy because we handle all the emails being sent to your students. And I know that a lot of schools are a little bit more wary about just giving a company all their student emails. We promise we do not send them any kind of like salesy stuff. It's purely just for the program. And if your district or your admin doesn't allow for that, the students can self-register. So we have multiple different options. You'll see the dates there that we have two different options at two different times. So it's June 1st through 5th, and then the 15th to the 19th. And I know that, let's say New York City, there's Regents exams and everything, but the sessions will be kind of later at night. and it's flexible for that schedule too. These are live, so it's called Jessica Live. So they're live and really great for large groups. We have schools who come back over and over again to do these, and it's actually really low cost for schools. It's $4.97 for the entire school, or it's free for most of y'all. So we'll get into that as well. 75% of counselors say that it is critical to their essay programming because we thought, oh, COVID's over. We don't need to do this anymore. And then so we sent out a survey like, would it really affect your program? And they said 75% has said yes, it would very much affect our program. So please keep it. It's like, okay. And literally, you guys, 99.9% of students said they felt confident choosing a topic last year, which we thought was incredible. And so if your school is one of these, you will qualify for free. This is our access thing. So please do not let money stop you. Okay. Shout out to AVID. If you have AVID at your school, you're automatically in there as well. And then Ethan want to show the tool.
Yeah. Yes. So and I'm going to answer a question that came up in Q&A about what we literally do on the sessions. So the way that it's mapped out is session one is all brainstorming, session two is outlining and writing, and session three is revising. And this is sort of like the curriculum that students get access to. So I walk them through the brainstorming exercises, all these different methods, and then they've got videos that they can basically walk through and see example essays. And then at the end of the example essay, there's like a little analysis. There's another example analysis, and then here's how to get started. And it's going to answer a lot of the questions that they're going to have about, revising. So if they're trying to figure out, for instance, how do I start my essay? I've got a whole thing on that. How do I, bring more, how do I write a great transition? There's stuff on that. There's also inside the tool, you'll see lots of different essay examples. So, whoops, got to get that link fixed. Jasmine, would you mind just sending a quick note to Katie about getting that one fixed? Thanks. So there's a whole bunch of I think it's like 30 different examples that we have in here. We've also got a little counselor portal, which you may or may not know about, which basically has a quick reference guide. So when you're trying to find brainstorming exercises or helping students pick a topic, or if there's a common or cliche topic, here's a quick guide to that. And then it also has a quick reference guide. Somebody asked in the chat, how do you help students, in the live setting when it comes to figuring out, the topic is unclear, or the examples aren't that strong, or maybe the challenges aren't that compelling. There's a place that you can direct them inside the tool. So one of the things that I'll do is in a group setting, I'll be reviewing essays live, and then I'll say, it looks like you could probably work on your transitions. And so then I'll just refer them into the transitions module. Or maybe it's like, you know what, I think you need more help with your outline. And it seems like you're writing a career essay. Check this out right here. So I'm kind of routing them to these different places in the tool. And I'm doing that live on the session and showing them how to use this so that they're like, oh, here's where I can get some of my questions answered. So that's hopefully helpful. Someone else asked, can you actually say what you're doing on the literal sessions? So here's our syllabus, which is, something and I'm happy we can link to this on the actual page so y'all can see this. Maybe we could do that, Jasmine, by early next week. We could just give a sense of, so that folks can check that out. So day one brainstorming, we have them download the essay workbook. We tell them about Matchlighters, which is our program for their identified as low income to get one-on-one help. We've got a walkthrough of some of the modules, that I do. My goal here is for them to create at least a couple outlines after the first session. I talk to them about log lines, on the first session. I talk to them about, here's how to outline your essay. I give them examples. And in this guide, they're basically creating all the work in their course workbook. Day two, we're getting into outlining in module two. So I'm kind of walking them through step by step the whole thing. And then but sometimes I'll come up with separate resources like, oh, how do you write about a challenge if it wasn't a big deal? Or someone might ask about the additional info section. I'm like, oh, check out the additional info section. So I'm referring them to resources and links there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of what's actually in the thing. Hannah, back to you.
Mhm.
And it's really free. All those things like Avid, if you have less than a budget of $2,000, it's free. We're gonna give away, by the way, can we put Jasmine, can we put the live essay, what you call the live session form? Because we're gonna give away a free access to one school anyway after this session. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, so overall, I just wanted to mention one more time, this was the counselor who gave us this feedback. It's amazing how creative schools have been with this program. I know of schools that gather their students live in person to do it. And if you're like, oh, heck no, I'm not going to do that over the summer, you don't have to. There are also schools that build it into their programming. So the counselors will say, you're going to get better feedback if you go to this session. It's going to really take collaboration and just partnership with other groups, parents knowing about it so that they can let their students know to attend. English teachers even can share this information. We do provide even like social media stuff, flyers and things to get this word out. We have a student version of this flyer too that you can send out. And this year, the biggest feedback that we got from students is they wanted more review because Ethan is just one person and there are hundreds of students who come to this. And so he does have a session where he will get student outlines or drafts and give feedback. This year, we are going to have an extra essay review session with some folks on our full-time team. And so, yeah, Tilly and Tom are going to do the personal statement ones, and then I will help out with the UC ones. And there may be more of us, but we're trying to provide as much help as we can so that by the time they get to you, it'll be in a much better place. And then this year, what we are doing as well is we are providing an amazing free parent workshop led by Ethan. And this is like a rare opportunity because he doesn't do these that often as well. And so if you are in the next 20 schools who do sign up for CEG Live, you are going to get this opportunity for free. And y'all, this is to help you to curb some of your parents' stress so that they're not, going after you for certain things about the essays. He's going to be like the third party telling them the things that you probably would have wanted to tell them anyway. And let's say you're not in the, next 20 schools, that's totally fine. We're going to offer two opportunities for this. I think it's one's in May, one's in June, and you just need to spread the word to your parents to come. This is more of an exclusive one. But if you don't win or you're not in the first 20, that's totally fine. We have other parent workshops and different options here. Reach out to us to get more information on that. And then also for the next 20 schools, Ethan, do you want to share?
Yeah, I'll say about this. Basically, I rewrote this book and we were like, hey, Source Books, my publisher, could we get some free copies for our CEG Live folks? And they were like, sure. So we've got free copies of College Essay Essentials, the second edition, and College Admission Essentials. It's not going to be out soon. I think it's going to be like after the NACAT conference. I think we're going to have some like advanced reader copies that we're going to give out then. So it'll be like toward like later in the year. Like I think it's coming out October, November. But hey, you get a free book. You'll be one of the first folks to get it. So yeah. I think that's it. I think we're at Q&A, and I've got exciting
Yes.
questions that I'm excited to jump into. We'll share the link to CEG Live in the chat. Some questions that came in about this are,
The price is
um,
not per student, it's per school.
yeah, per school. So it's
Yeah.
like $500 for like the whole school, if
Hmm.
if you have a budget. Otherwise, it's just $0 for the whole school.
Hmm.
The $0 is a per student price, though. I'll tell you. Let's see. Can we link the syllabus? I think we can do that. I'll talk to Jasmine about linking the syllabus. I think if that's helpful, yeah, for sure. But if your school qualifies because of a small budget for PD, where do I submit that? Just do it on the page, on the CEG Live page. You'll see a little place if you just scroll down. Let me just show you where that is real quick. College Essay Guide Live. Live. There we go. Okay. So let me just share my screen real quick. Here's the page. It's such a nice page. This is like, I think it's such a beautiful page. Just scroll down. Here you go. So you've got CEG Live. This is like if you have a budget, if you don't have a budget, any of those things that we mentioned earlier, you just go here, click register. And once you click this link, it'll take you to a little type form and you can just let us know. Why is my Sonos talking to me? I don't know. Hey, Sonos, stop. All right. Um, so you just click here to start and it'll walk you through it. So pretty simple, pretty easy. Like Hannah mentioned, we've got lots of templates that we put together to make it easy for you to just like promote it, tell students about it, and then we'll take over in terms of just reminding them, reminder emails and that sort of thing. There was another question that came in. Um, we're interested in gathering our students live in person to attend the session together. Yes, great. Bunches of schools do this. Hannah, you were talking to one yesterday that was doing this. Have
Hmm.
counselor students provided CEG with any feedback on that experience? What has worked well? What was challenging? Bring snacks, like
Yeah,
figure out the food
that's a big one.
situation. Yeah, Hannah, what would you say? What have folks said about making this go well?
Yeah, bringing snacks. Another thing is like it's not like just playing a video, right? So ideally, as the counselor, you're walking around helping them. Um, yeah, I would say. really incentivizing them, letting them know, like constant reminders of why this is important, that's going to be big.
Yeah, the other thing is like having folks on call who can just be like get five people, teachers, counselors, even like motivated parents, and if you can let them sit on the session, so they're kind of like sort of being trained on what we're looking for in terms of topics, and then they can be like smart, caring adults in the room to help them through that process. So like after day one, when I'm like, hey, we're gonna look at topics and I'm giving feedback on topics, it's also kind of like if you can get them not for the end of the session, but to sit there for the whole thing, they're getting free PD to like understand how to give students feedback. So that's another way that other folks have thought of this is like, hey, and I would just encourage like let them come early, let them be a whole part of the whole experience. And then a simple way to do it is like Hannah mentioned, do the 90 minutes of like the live session, pause for snacks, drinks, restroom break, and then have them stay for another hour and just get, roaming feedback. We call them speed sessions where someone will just like, who needs help? Like raise a hand. And their homework that I give them, they can just have an hour to actually work on it. That's worked super well. And that's why we offer one of them during the day if you want to do it. We haven't found like the perfect time for all schools, but we offer it at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then we have another one that's, after school hours, so like 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. Eastern, so that folks can have that option. We've also seen folks do the recorded version. So they're like, we can't make it on those exact dates. We want to do the recordings. So they'll just like watch them the next morning and play it live. They'll miss out on a little bit of the like, being able to ask questions live if they want, but that seemed to work pretty well too. Ba-dum-bum-bum. Oh, big questions. For CG, what is the role of the counselor? Do you mean just in general? So, what is the role of the counselor? I think it would take me a little while to answer that one. I love this question, but it feels so huge. If I were to roles and identities this one, I think can you be more specific with your question? Because I think that my mind is being blown by the immensity of this question. One that's only slightly less intimidating is tell me about AI in the process. So I've got a whole guide. We just did a presentation on this. I want to say like 2 weeks ago. We talked a little bit about AI and what is the role of the counselor. Oh, we talked about both of these things in that session. Okay. If you go, we'll link this in the follow-up email, but there was a session that we did on AI in the process, what we're seeing in terms of colleges, and then what is the role of counselors? Oh, yes, we answered these in that session. It was a session with Tilly. It's on YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel. Smash that like button. No, do I want to get into it now? Let me do the short version. The colleges that are using AI so far, they're coming out saying, we are not only outsourcing essay reading to the machines, we still have a human involved. Could that change at some point? Maybe. But right now, we've still got humans reading them. That's what we're hearing. I read this incredible article called $0 College Counselor on Higher Ed Insights that talks about how some colleges are making their prompts more specific so that it makes it harder for AI to sort of like generate a draft that seems like it came from a student. So that's another thing that I'm aware of in the AI realm. In that article, it says that more than 60% of colleges are using AI. I don't know if that's true. That came from a survey. I did a little research on that on Intelligent, I think is the name of the thing that put it out. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily true. I have not heard about very many colleges, at least coming out and talking about are they using AI to analyze applications. Um, in terms of resources to check out, I wrote a thing on this. I will share it with you. This is like, AI, if you Google, I'm just Googling AI college essay guy, you'll see a guide that I put together. Like, let's see. Oh, thanks. Jasmine found the link. Yeah, that's the YouTube one. And then this guide right here is like, here's what colleges are saying about AI, and here's what the Common App is saying. And this is sort of like the latest advice. We'll update that as more colleges come out with more AI statements. But for the most part, colleges haven't said a lot about this. And so I'm teaching this course separately on AI with discernment for counselors that is on what do we do and how do we write our own AI stances. So my short thing that I say in that video, in the YouTube video is like, I would encourage you to write your own AI stance. What are the things that you are committed to? What are the things that you hold dear? How will you protect those things as AI becomes more and more popular, more and more, woven into our daily lives? Um, Role of the counselor. Oh, got it. What do you do versus what do you do in the CG workshop? Okay, great, 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 great. Got it. So in those workshops, if I'm like being college essay guy, essentially the counselor is you can kind of chill and you can kind of be like, hey, they got this session. And then if you're watching the live one, you can be like sort of going around answering questions. And then afterwards, doing those speed sessions with them, helping them pick topics because I won't have time to like speak to every one of your awesome students. So the role of the counselor, thank you. I thought you meant in general, and I was so overwhelmed. The role of the counselor is to just basically do these sort of speed sessions moments, check in, how are students doing? I mean, it's like, are they having, do they have enough water? Are they, but mostly you get to like just watch and be a part of the thing. It's kind of like I'm a guest speaker, I suppose. And then you get to like, okay, here's my take on this. I hope that answers your question. Okay, yeah, for sure. Did we do the things? I think we did the things. I think
Mhm.
so. All right. Thanks, friends, for being here. Is CEG Live providing feedback to students in real time? Yes. Not all of them, because it's only a 90-minute session and we'll have a bunch of students on it. But I am giving students feedback live, going like, oh, but I'm trying to like not be like, hey, and I tell students this, you're not going to get, everybody's not going to get feedback from me. You're going to basically hopefully get taught to think like college essay guy so that you'll be able to write the essays because I'm trying to teach them how to fish kind of thing. So that's the model that I'm working in is like, how do you think in this particular way about this? Cool. You're so welcome, Chris. Thanks for your positivity. And oh, Julie, I'm sorry. Questions keep coming in. How does that work exactly? So in the session that I'm actually leading, I'm going to be telling them, here are the things that we're looking for. And then students will come up with ideas. And I'm like, this does that thing. This thing could do that thing better. And they'll be like, oh, okay, I kind of see what he's talking about with this elastic, uncommon in some way topic. And then by the time we get to day two, we're already looking at outlines. And I'm like, here's how I think about an outline. So you're kind of like sitting over Ethan's shoulder. Here's how Ethan looks at an essay and being taught to think like Ethan, sort of. That's what students are doing. And then they start to develop their taste so that by day three, I'm like, what do you think I would say about this? And students will be giving feedback that sounds a lot like, college essay guy. And it's like, you guys totally know how to do this. So I'm kind of trying to teach them those tools and then invite them into the feedback. And we have to do that in a safe way, of course, and with consent. Hey, student, are you cool with me, asking for feedback from the peanut gallery? So that's kind of how that goes. I feel your essay exercise will be useful for much more than writing college essays. Any thoughts? I feel seen by this, Sankar. Yes, and I totally recommend trying them. And that is also the secret of my work and my life is like, yes, this is about college. College is great, but actually, what about life? How do we become more thoughtful, caring, expansive humans together? And if you see that or you sense that, it's not by accident. So Hannah, anything else you want to leave folks with? I know we're over time, but what are you thinking?
So grateful you're all here. We just want to be of service and make your lives easier. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks. All right, appreciate y'all, and we'll see you. And we're doing this again in 5 hours. So if you've got folks that you're like, oh, you should check out this thing, we're going to do it again in 5 hours for folks. So feel free to spread the word. And
Actually, yeah, we're in our follow-up email. We're even going to give you an email template on how to ask your admin to do CG Live.
oh,
So we're trying to
yes,
make this as easy as possible for you.
yes, a simple template that's like, hey, I want to do this program. Here's how. It's kind of like what NACAC conference does when they're like, here's how to ask permission from like the boss or whatever. We're kind of trying to, take a page out of NACAC's book to make it super easy because the other people sometimes, you need buy-in from those folks. So, yeah, there's plenty more. Yeah, great. We'll leave it there. All right. Thanks, y'all. Thank you, Hannah. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.